More men are single now than ever before in history, and I've got a theory about this that you probably have not heard before, and it is backed up by the data. So please keep listening for at least a few minutes if this is a topic you care about, because you're not going to hear this information anywhere else. According to a Pew Research study from 2022, 63% of men under the age of 30 are single, while only 34% of women in the same age group are single. Now, this data comes from self-reported survey responses, meaning it's probably not super accurate, but just from what I see in my day-to-day life, it's obvious that more men are single now than ever before, especially younger men. I would be willing to bet that if you consider only men 40 years of age and younger, easily the majority are single. That survey study I mentioned, by the way, it has data for the age group 18 to 29, and then it has data for ages 30 to 49 and older age groups too. I'll just leave this image of the data on the screen for a minute so you can see it for yourself. But yeah, I would be curious what the percentage is in the 30 to 40 age range. And maybe the raw data is available to sift through. I don't know, but I don't have time for that anyways. And I don't need a study to tell me all this. It's pretty obvious just from living in the world and occasionally going outside. Other than maybe just the oldest demographics, most men are single. And I don't care about the proportionality either. Like 63% of men are single, but only 34% of women? Oh my God, what a discrepancy! I don't really think that part's that important. I think what would be more interesting to see would be what percentage of men and women are involuntarily celibate, because I'm pretty sure, and I'm not going to bother trying to look it up, because if you think the average single woman is going to answer honestly on a survey asking her about her romantic life, then I don't know what to tell you. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot more single women that are actually getting some action compared to single men. Like, if we assume those numbers are anywhere kind of close to being accurate, that 63% of men under 30 are single and 34% of women under 30 are single, I'm pretty sure that of that 63% of men that are single, yeah, some of them are probably single by choice. Some of those guys are single but not lonely. They're just single because they'd rather sleep with lots of women as opposed to just one. But for men, I think most single men really are just plain old single and lonely and celibate. It's not by choice that they're single. But for single women, I think it's a different story, because it's really, really easy for women to find someone to get jiggy with if that's what they want to do. But even if you ignore that fact, a lot of women these days just don't want to be in a relationship. They don't want to date. They don't want to have intimate time with a man. Okay, so I've seen lots of discussions online about these statistics, but I think most people are missing the bigger picture. And women don't want you to know this. They're happy to let us keep speculating amongst ourselves about whether the singleness discrepancy is because so many women are all dating the same few men, or if it's because women tend to date older men, so it makes the data for the individual age ranges kind of lopsided, or whatever. But a lot of women legitimately just don't care about dating, and they don't care about even having any intimate time with a man whatsoever. I think most women would love to date a highly attractive man if the opportunity presented itself, But I also think they don't care that much to really put in effort to make it happen. They care more about their fake careers, if anything, because as a man, if you want to have anybody in this world that actually cares about you, other than maybe your immediate family, like your parents, you have to find a woman to be your girlfriend and then get married, have kids, and all that. And so basically, what you have to do is you have to make your own family to care about you. That's the only way you can have people that care about you. But for women, none of those things are necessary. If you are an average woman, then everybody already cares about you. Everybody already gives you attention. So most women already have all the attention they need. Like on The Sims, how you have all the different meters for different needs like hunger, sleep, hygiene, etc. Well, one of the meters is social. So for the average man, you have to fill up your social meter by the sweat of your own brow. I think that's the phrase, sweat of your brow. I don't know, I'm saying that now out loud and it sounds wrong. But what I'm trying to say is men have to work hard and go through struggle to fill up their social meter. The average woman does not have to do that. Her social meter is just always filled up because everything she does, everywhere she goes, random simps and other women, and even at an institutional level, like workplace initiatives and affirmative action for women, and just going through life in this society where it's always women and children first, protect women, believe women, all that adds up. So women just don't need relationships with men the same way that men need relationships with women. Okay, and here's the other thing, and this is the new insight I have that you probably haven't thought of before. Okay, so 63% of men under 30 are single and 34% of women are single. I know that data isn't perfect, but that's what we have to go off of. Okay, so roughly 2 times as many men as women under the age of 30 are single. All right, so here's some more data for you. 8.4% of men are on antidepressants, but 17.7% of women are on antidepressants. Okay, so roughly twice as many women are on antidepressants compared to men. And by the way, these numbers are from the CDC, and this is also from a survey study, I'm pretty sure. So is it completely accurate? Probably not. But I don't think being on antidepressants is something people are as likely to lie about as whether or not they're single. But yeah, it's a survey study. And the numbers I gave, 8.4% of men and 17.7% of women, that's for all age groups, but the same ratio holds for every age group. Okay, so in case you didn't know, a common side effect of antidepressants is a decrease in libido. You can argue all you want that smexual desire and romantic desire, by the way, I'm sorry that I had to say that one word like that. I don't want my videos to get demonetized. I don't want to get community guideline strikes because I said a very basic word that they're allowed to say on cable TV, but it is what it is. That is the landscape on YouTube right now. So I don't really know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not. So yeah, I have to say it like that. But yeah, you can argue all you want that sexual desire and romantic desire are 2 different things, but that's bullcrap. At the very least, you have to admit they are heavily linked to the degree that I would say you really can't even have romantic desire without smexual desire. So let's look at those numbers again. 2 times as many women as men are on libido lowering antidepressants, and 2 times as many men are single compared to women. Now, I'm not a statistician. I'm not an actuary or whatever. I don't know if that is relevant, but that is quite curious. Okay, the data is quite interesting, so to speak. But the ratios between genders, I don't think really matters. It's just by the raw numbers, a whole lot of women are taking libido limiting medication. So women do not desire men for filling up their social meter, so to speak. And they also largely don't even have much sexual desire. So that's my big insight on the male loneliness epidemic and why now more men than ever before are single and involuntarily celibate. It's a combination of women not needing men to fill their social validation meter as much as the other way around. And that combined with the fact that a majority of women of all ages have medically lowered libidos. So women don't even have any desire for romance because they don't even have functioning libidos. Okay, and you can argue that, well, sure, a lot of women are on antidepressants, but it's not even close to most of them if it's just 17.7%. And actually, I think it was more like 10% for the under 30 demographic. But okay, a couple things to note here. Those numbers for antidepressant usage, that data is 7 years old. There might be a more recent study. I don't know. I didn't look that hard. Science is gay. I don't really care. But I would be surprised if those numbers are not a lot higher now. And the other thing is, antidepressants are not even close to being the only libido limiting drug out there. Hormonal birth control is believed by many to have libido decreasing effects, and I'm pretty sure a whole lot of women are on birth control. And there's other medications that can reduce a woman's libido too. It wouldn't even be possible to list them all. We are living in a very, very medicated society. Women more so than men. So, yeah, women are out here getting zombified, just popping pills and deleting their sex drives. And I think that's probably a big part of the male loneliness epidemic. That's one of the, I don't know if it's the root cause, but it's getting close to the root. I will say that. I know a lot of you probably believe that women have just as high libido as men. That's a pretty commonly held belief in the manosphere, regardless of what color pill you subscribe to. And if we're talking unmedicated women, then I would agree with that. Women have just as high libido as men when they're not medicated. But realistically, no, I don't think that the average woman or women as a group have as much drive as men, primarily because of medication. But I think the reason it seems that way to a lot of people is because women will do anything for Chad, even if they have no libido at all. You know, Chad unlocks their libido. And really, I think there probably is like, the way it works, you know, at some point, if a man's jawline is just chiseled enough and he's just got like the perfect mid face or lower third or whatever these look-smaxing, these highly regarded look-smaxers say, okay, highly regarded or something that rhymes with that. I'm just saying, Some effects of medication can only go so far. When a woman sees Henry Cavill, for example, her antidepressants just stop working, okay? But without the medication, women would be finding a much larger portion of the male population attractive. So I think that explains that. You do see even the most medicated girl bosses lusting after the top 10% of men, and you think that must mean that women have just as much drive as men, but what you're really seeing is just that women do have a lot less drive than men on average due to their medication, but the effect is essentially just that their window for which men they have drive for is a lot smaller. Of course, the male loneliness epidemic does still exist, in large part due to all of the other factors everyone always talks about. You know, the state of the economy, online dating, Yu-Gi-Oh, women's high standards, etc. But the over-medication of the female population in the Western world definitely plays a role. I think it probably plays a bigger role than most people think. And here's the other thing I want to say. So, everything about women's libidos being wiped out by medication and that in turn causing them to not even have any desire for men, even romantically, that's not something I think most of those medicated women are even aware of. But the fact that women just don't need men to get social validation, or they don't need to actually be in a relationship with a man to get that, while men do need that. Because again, for a man to actually have anybody in this world that cares about him other than his parents or maybe his siblings and grandparents, he has to actually start his own family. He has to find a woman to be his life partner, and women just don't need that. Well, I think women, for the most part, they live in this world just like you and me. They know how it is, but you'll never hear a woman admit that. Instead, if you ask a woman why the male population is so much more lonely on average than women, they'll usually try to gaslight you, or they deflect. It's like what we saw recently with a certain female YouTuber that exists and makes stuff. Women usually respond to male loneliness by blaming the problem on men. I do think some of that is just ignorance, but sometimes it's intentional. It has to be. Because if they admit that socially women have a big advantage over men, then that undermines some of feminism's biggest talking points. It undermines the basis for some of these big women in tech initiatives or whatever, all of it. So they have to try to convince lonely men that, sweetie, we're not the problem, you're the problem. Take a look at yourself, lonely men, you're the problem. It's your own fault. So yeah, women are, everybody, including men in our society, are way, way over-medicated, but women especially are just super duper over-medicated. And that is a huge contributor to the male loneliness epidemic. But that's not something you hear women talking about. And even the most vocal feminists are always talking about mental health and access to birth control. And both of those things are obviously correlated with the over-medication of women. Because when you hear women talking about everybody should go to therapy, therapy's so great, therapy changed my life, it's so important to do the work. Maybe some of these lonely men should go to therapy. That might make them feel better. Well, it's not the therapy itself that's giving them results. which aren't even actually good results. The result is either they end up basically lobotomized by antidepressants, so they just don't care about anything, or they end up getting high on amphetamines, ADD medication. So therapy is just the first step that allows them to get medicated. That's how they get the access to these drugs. They promote therapy because they want everyone to be lobotomized and or mentally satiated like them. Because it's probably true that lonely men wouldn't talk about the male loneliness epidemic as much if they were also medicated as much as women, because duh, that stuff lobotomizes you. It makes you not really care about anything. But good luck making any progress whatsoever as a society when all of the men in your society are so zombied out, they don't even have enough motivation to do anything. I mean, we're already pretty much at that point, with men not having any motivation just because men feel like it's hopeless to even try, which is at least partially caused by the over-medication of women. But just think how much worse it would be if men were also medicated on that same level. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope I gave you something to think about, maybe a bit of a different perspective on male loneliness and why it's so hard out here for so many of us, even like a slightly above average looking men. It's pretty tough out here. It is. And I think I'm onto something here with they hand out prescriptions like nobody's business. If you've interacted with a woman today, chances are she is on some form of medication that lowers her libido. Like, it's more than likely that that is the case. Any random woman we're talking about. So that's all I got for today. Like the video, sub to the channel, and thank you for watching.